Welcome to the Effilix Podcast on AI in Project Management and Transformation. Here, we're all about exploring how AI is reshaping project management, bringing new tools, trends, and insights that are driving real transformation. Welcome to today's episode. We're super excited to have Scott Ambler with us. He's been in the Agile game for over 30 years. Scott is the mind behind Agile Modeling and Agile Data, and he co-created the Disciplined Agile toolkit. In today's chat, we're diving into AI and DevOps, how they're making software delivery faster and better. We'll explore how the magic mix of AI and DevOps is transforming software delivery and helping teams innovate quicker than ever before. Let's get into it.
Oh, thank you for having me here. I'm always happy to share ideas.
It's amazing. So today, we are diving into a powerful combination of AI, DevOps, and continuous improvement strategies and how they are reshaping software development. Scott, let's start with how AI and DevOps are driving these changes, with our first segment being data-driven decision-making for continuous improvements. So in this segment, we're going to see how data-driven approaches are at core of improving software delivery. That said, how can development teams use data to continuously evaluate and optimize their processes?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think this is at the heart of the DevOps movement in my opinion. So the common DevOps tools that we've been seeing over the years produce data. You're working with the tools, you're doing whatever it is that you need to do to develop the system that you're working on. And the tools are logging what you're doing. They record what you've done and tried and all that good sort of stuff. And as a result, you can use that data using basic data warehousing and business intelligence technologies when it gets down to it to provide intel to the developer, to the team, and to senior leadership to help guide your decisions on how you want to improve your way of working.
That makes sense. So what do you think are the most important data points to track for effective and continuous improvement?
So it depends on a few things. Primarily, what does the organization want to improve? What does the team want to improve? So every team is different. Every organization is different, but common issues will be, you'll want to improve the quality of your work. So as a result, you'll leverage the quality oriented metrics that are coming out of the tools. You will probably want to improve the flow of your work. So you'll use flow oriented metrics. So it really does depend. And so different teams do different things, which is why you want flexibility in your tools, and you want to have a little bit of toolsmithing skills on your team as well, and within your organization to tailor your tooling to what you want to do.
You want to help the audience with one of such examples that you think has been very key for a team to be continuously improving and delivering?
Yeah, so definitely. So almost every team that I've been on has wanted to improve quality, for example. So if you're an application development team where you're writing a lot of source code, then you're probably focused on source code quality. So for example, if you're an application development team, you're probably going to want to collect metrics on the quality of your source code. So those can include, and there's a very wide range of source code metrics. I lean towards the complexity measures because I believe simpler code is higher quality code. But once again, it really does depend. And or another example, if you're a data warehousing team, then you're probably going to collect data quality metrics. So along the lines of how many missing values are there in the data that's being produced? How many incorrect values or poorly formatted values are there? So there's many data quality metrics that you can collect. So it really depends on what you're targeting.
Got it. Got it. So how can teams leverage these data insights to make more informed decisions? Because it's it I mean, from the team's perspective, there are multiple hierarchies that come into picture. So how does everything go well hand in hand so that teams don't feel the pressure and yet they're able to deliver continuously?
Yeah, definitely. So the issue, there's really two issues there, right? It's well, first of all, what is under the team's control is really the big thing. So you'll want to act on the data that reflects on issues that are important to you and that you can actually control. So for example, with the source code, source code quality, the team can choose to start writing better code. Like, we might have to get some training or read some books, but we can also choose to refactor. We can also choose to do more testing. So there's things that we can do that the data informs us of. But then there's some issues that we're motivated to improve because leadership wants us to improve, such as time to market. So what we want to do there is, so if we're being pressured to deliver faster, that tells us we probably want to improve our flow, which tells us we probably want to measure our flow, and then based on what those metrics tell us, we want to remove bottlenecks, for example, in our development process. So it really does depend on your situation.
Got it. So I believe this will better the collaboration between teams. But then I'm just wondering, how does accountability come into picture in such a scenario?
How does what come into the picture?
Accountability?
Oh, accountability. Yeah, well, the team will more than likely be asked to improve time to market, right? And you'll be held accountable to that. Maybe you have to hit a date, or maybe in the case of a DevOps environment, you'll be asked to deploy on a regular basis. Maybe you're deploying truly continuously, but then you have what appears to be major releases once a month, because you're turning on collections of functionality that you've delivered over the month. So what'll happen is the team will be held accountable to that. You'll be held accountable to what you produce, and the quality of what you produce, the rate at which it's being produced. So then as a result, because you're accountable for that, for whatever reasons, those are the sorts of things that you want to measure and make sure that you're actually meeting whatever the requirement is.
Got it. With that said, we can move ahead with segment 2. In segment 2, we are going to see how AI is impacting DevOps and accelerating developments. From that point of view, I'd like to ask, how do you see AI enhancing DevOps practices and enabling faster development cycles?
Yeah, so AI is certainly having a huge impact on software development and on DevOps, on data warehousing, and on all aspects of delivering IT-based solutions. It's really exciting. It's also really scary because a lot of things are changing suddenly. In many ways, the software development community is finally on the receiving end of technology-driven change. And the way that it's doing that is the vendors and sometimes the open source developers are producing AI-based tools to implement certain aspects of the overall delivery process, because the overall delivery process is very, very complex, and there's a lot of room for improvement. So what they're doing is the various tool vendors are identifying reasonably onerous portions of the process where a lot of what I would call grunt work is still being done by developers or by analysts or architects or whatever portion of the process they're focused on, and they're building tooling to basically automate away that grunt work. So an activity that might have taken 4 or 5 hours or a day or two now takes 15-20 minutes. So there's we're seeing significant improvements in portions of the overall DevOps lifecycle or development lifecycle, whatever whatever you want to call that. So it's very exciting.
Got it. Got it. So, how do you think forecasting potential issues or delays comes into picture with AI?
Yeah. So sometimes what's interesting is when you have all this data coming from out of these tools and being put into effectively into a development data warehouse, the AI tools can leverage this sort of data and start seeing trends, right? So trends that humans might not have noticed in the past um, can now be detected in some cases by these AIs, and they can alert you. They can say, hey, we've seen this before. It looks like this team is not going to hit its date, or it looks like this team is not going to be able to deliver because there's quality problems in what they're doing. Like quality problems are rising, for example. So the AI tools can point out problems and good things too, right? They might be pointing out, hey, this team's going to deliver faster because things are getting better. So it's a two-edged sword. But so you're just getting better intel and one of the challenges in the data world in general has always been we've had this overwhelming amount of data and we didn't know what to do with it, or we'd be able to show metrics dashboards and the people wouldn't understand what the metrics were telling them. Now with the right AI technology, you can actually get advice that is coherent. So it's really exciting, and this is still early days, right? I think the rest of this decade is it's going to be very interesting with respect to AI-based tooling.
That makes sense. So, moving on to segment 3, how to get better at getting better. You coined this phrase, and you should help us understand as a tech team, if you want to move ahead for a continuous improvement mindset. How do you think technology, culture, AI, everything plays into the requirements that tech team lead provides them, or the entire business goals come into picture? With all of these happening, how do you think one should be able to, or how you think one can perhaps get better at getting better?
Yeah, definitely. So this is this was a slogan or a saying that we used to use a few years ago at a firm that I helped to start, Disciplined Agile Inc. And what our focus was we, instead of helping organizations to adopt a framework like SAFe or Scrum or Less or others, we instead focused on teaching people and teaching teams how to improve, how to do continuous improvement. So helping them to get better at getting better, because this isn't a skill that most people have. And there was a lot of naive advice in the Agile community. Failing fast, was a classic, fad, a couple of years ago now, and still arguably is in the community. And that's certainly a good thing. Failing fast is certainly better than failing slowly, but it's still failing. And and you can put any euphemisms around that you want. Well, we're not really failing, we're learning. No, you failed. And there's other ways to learn. And that was always our point, was that there's other ways to learn. So, why do something that, why experiment with something that is most likely going to fail? You'll learn that it doesn't work, but you know what? A lot of other people know that doesn't work. So why are you trying it? Why can't let's try to learn from the experience of others. So at Disciplined Agile, we had this toolkit called Disciplined Agile, and we trained people and coaches on how to use the toolkit to provide better advice to teams based on the learnings of many, many others, to choose strategies to experiment with that had a greater chance of success, so you would fail less often. And we called this guided continuous improvement. Well, that was back in the day, right? That was like 5 or 6 years ago now. But today, you could use AI tools to achieve the same sort of thing, right? So if the AI tool has been trained on software development strategies, if you have data coming, if it can access data coming in from the tools that team is using, then the AI can suggest, here's what your challenges currently are. Here are more than likely the highest priority challenges that you face, and here's some strategies that you might want to experiment with to address these challenges. So it's the same basic idea, except now the AI, but it's more scalable because the AI is easier to access by people, right? Like the challenge with using the DA toolkit was you had to have somebody on your team that was trained in the usage of the toolkit and stuff like that. So, which was very doable and certainly a good idea. But now with AI, you can certainly augment the team in doing this. So it's a more scalable approach. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for teams to get better at getting better.
That's it. AI and the mindset to become better and better could actually result in improvement that the organizations actually need, couldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So and I think this is one of the challenges that organizations have seen over the years, right? Like they want to improve. Like, senior leadership wants the organization to improve. They want to guide their teams through improvement. But if the teams don't have a habit of improving, if they don't have the skills to improve, and if they don't have help, right? And I think this was one of the reasons why the failing fast concept caught on, was because teams were being asked to improve, but they inherently didn't have the skills to do it. And sometimes the coaches they were hiring also didn't have the background to help them improve, right? So your next best option is to, take a good guess, try something, experiment with it, and hopefully you fail fast at it if you're going to fail. And so it's like, let's just keep throwing stuff at the wall until something sticks. That doesn't work well. It's fun, and it's certainly better than failing slowly, but it's still failing. And so I think now with AI, I think what leadership can do now is, they can still ask, they're still going to ask the teams, we would like you to improve. We'd like you to get better at, whatever your OKRs are, right? And we want to get better at this. And here's tooling to help you do that. And here's how you use that tooling. So now leadership can actually lead and enable their teams to do what they want them to do, which is to improve and to get better. But in the past, I think there was a lot of wishful thinking, but there wasn't a lot of actual doing, which is why we see a lot of organizations sort of struggle with Agile because they didn't support their teams as well as they could have.
Sense. So what are some of the practical ways companies can ensure continuous improvement in the current system if it's not dated? For example, if they're following something really old ways of working, right?
Yeah.
This process might not be applicable to them. But if there are companies who are willing to make a change, willing to get more products out there into the market, willing to beat up this competition. So what do you think there could be some of the practical ways these companies can adapt to?
Yeah. So, well, even if you're following older ways of working, there's always room for improvement, right? It doesn't really matter, Yeah. So from a continuous improvement point of view, you start where you are, right? So whatever I'm currently doing today, I could get better at that. Like there's always room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to be willing to improve. I need to understand that there is room for improvement. Right? So that's a big challenge right there. So, and this is what leadership can do, right? Like they can communicate that, exactly what I just said. It's, there is room for improvement, and here's how we can do it, and provide the tools, provide the time to learn how to use the tools to do this, and provide examples, right? So some teams will be better at this than others. So have those teams mentor other teams, and like simple techniques like just brown bag lunches and webinars and stuff like that, just to share their experiences. And so I think it really is this, the key factor is, are you willing to improve? Are you willing to try this new tooling to help you to provide the insight of what you can do, and then do the work of improving, right? So like, just because the AI suggests, well, why don't you try, these 3 techniques, or here's some good ideas for you. If you don't act on those suggestions, then it's going to go nowhere, right? So the teams still need to have the desire to improve, and they still need to be allowed to improve. I think this is, from a leadership point of view, if I'm asking my teams to improve, then I've got to give them the resources, including the time, including the funding in some cases, to do so, right? But if I'm constantly hounding them to, focus on delivering new functionality, focus on getting stuff out the door, focus on this, then they're not going to focus on improvement. So I think, so this is the hardcore reality of all of this, is that you've got to be allowed, you have to want to improve, and you have to be allowed to improve.
The AI uncovering some of the hidden needs, because most of the time when the management or the managers speak to the teams, oftentimes it happens that the teams are pretty biased and they do not want to share their actual expectations. Even if they do, it isn't to the depths, right? So how do you see AI solve this issue of bringing the transparency and helping the managers, both the leaders and as well as the teams, to act upon for the continuous improvements?
Yeah, definitely. So that's an interesting cultural challenge, and it's been around long before AI became popular. Transparency enables governance, and it enables leadership. The challenge with transparency is that you actually see what's going on, and sometimes what's going on is not what you want to hear. It's not what you thought was going on. So the hardcore reality might not be to your liking, but that's a great opportunity. That tells you, well, wait a minute, we need to change these things. So leadership, when you get on this path, you will have transparency, and you've got to realize sometimes you're going to see things that you don't like, but that's good, because those things are happening whether you like it or not. And if you don't like what's going on, then you need to be a leader now. You need to actually help your teams to improve and to start behaving in the manner that you hope them to behave. And having said that, like I believe everybody is inherently good. I believe people are inherently trying to do the best they can, but they're often not allowed to. They often feel that they're disempowered. So leadership needs to use this opportunity to empower their people to achieve what leadership wants them to achieve, but also more than likely what the people want them to do. Everybody wants to be successful, right? Everybody wants to feel good about what they're doing. So, use the transparency provided by this new AI tooling to actually act on that. So I think there's a lot of wonderful opportunities, but yeah, it can be uncomfortable, seeing what's actually going on, often for the first time.
Developers and engineering teams and members in those teams, one of the common thing that we hear is that management has a very unrealistic expectations out of the teams, and they want us to do magics without actually understanding the current workloads, or even if the members are being burnt out doing those activities or those projects. So how do you think this kind of scenarios or this kind of situations needs to be dealt with for continuous improvement, and what are the suggestions you have that leaders should probably try within their organizations to ensure that the teams are actually happy and they are continuously improving with the mindset which we just discussed?
Yeah, definitely. So that gets there's several issues there. So first, if happiness is important to you, and I hope that it is, then it tells you need to measure happiness, and then you need to act on whatever those measures tell you. But the other issue as well, and this is a very serious problem, that's I think is going to be difficult to overcome in the long term, is leadership often does not understand the realities of software development. They don't understand how it all fits together. They don't understand concepts like technical debt and how technical debt occurs. They don't understand some of the fundamentals of what developers face and all the complexities. So my hope is that AI can start providing some insight into that, but it's also developers have to learn the language of business. And this has been true for decades, and it's not been going well in most cases. But developers need to communicate that some of these bad or questionable requests coming from leadership, you need to push back sometimes, and you need to communicate that the trade-offs. And I've always liked to speak in terms of risks, because management understands the concept of risk and risk mitigation and risk trade-off generally. So if you can communicate that, when you ask us to do this, then you're increasing the risk of poor quality. You're increasing the risk of missing a date, of losing people, of whatever. And whereas if you work in this manner, if you ask us to do this, or if you give us, more resources or more time, or just stop asking us to do this thing over here, or at least reduce that, then you'll get better results. Because the management doesn't understand the levers of software development. They don't understand that, dialing back on delivering new functionality provides time for recovery of the software developers. It provides time to invest in better quality, which will allow us to speed up later. So I think there's a lot of that. Plus, management is often trained in questionable belief systems from a software development point of view. I think that I was a vice president at Project Management Institute for a few years, and one of the challenges in project management world is the rules for project management when you're building a building, when you're working with physical material, are different than the rules that are applicable when you're dealing with information, when you're dealing with bits and bytes. And so what'll happen is a manager who's been trained mostly on dealing with physical stuff, good behaviors in that world are in many cases bad behaviors in bits and bytes world, and vice versa. And so if management doesn't understand that, if they have different expectations than the realities of software development, then they're asking you to do things that they believe are a good idea. I've run into a lot of managers who believe that pushing a team to deliver probably earlier than they want is a good idea because it's motivating them, not realizing that the team will basically produce poor quality work as a result. And that seems to be news to management, and usually it's not what they want. But they don't understand. Like, nobody's ever taken the time to explain that to them. So I think AI can help with that. Particularly if the tooling enables you to compare scenarios. But I also think developers need to get better at communicating why some ideas are not the greatest, and to do so calmly and in the language of the business. Which gets back to my earlier point that, like I said, I found that, speaking in terms of risk is something that management tends to understand.
Got it. Got it. So, do you think the integration or manning of AI in DevOps will be of great impact to this mindset that we're talking about? Do you think it will be rather something that the teams would be very happy about, or will they think like it's a bit complicated for them, and
Um,
vice versa? Anything?
yeah, I think it depends. I think there's always this. Developers like to work with new tools and like to learn new things, right? So there's always that positive thing with respect to new tooling. But I think there's also some fear right now too. We are seeing the need for developers reducing, and it's due to better AI-based tooling, right? So when you remove the grunt work from some of the things that we do, well, you need fewer people, right? And it's nice to say that we're going to augment what people are doing, and we're going to make their jobs better and free them up to do more interesting work, and certainly that's happening. But sometimes what happens is when you see, we've had a 30% reduction in the amount of work that's being done, okay, we can lay off 30% of our developers. So there's that level of thinking too, right? So I think there's and rightfully so, there's some fear that AI will reduce the need for software developers, and that is completely justified. We're seeing that, and this is true of a lot of white collar work in general, not just software developers. But I would hope that organizations would choose to keep good people, would choose to allow them to do better work, and to frankly clean up the technical debt in these organizations, and allow you to have a better infrastructure and be able to support your customers more effectively. And it's certainly cleaning up your source data in your various systems to enable management to make better data-driven decisions and build better quality AIs would certainly be a good investment of people's time. But so I think there's the opportunity for positive feedback loops to make things better for developers and provide better work opportunities. There's also the opportunity for negative feedback loops where developers start losing work because of AI, and they just get replaced or partially replaced. So it's definitely a two-edged sword, and I would push people to focus on the positive and choose to do good.
Got it. Got it. So, in all our episodes, we ask this to our guests, which is, what are the 5 tips that you can give for this case? Perhaps I would say 5 tips or techniques which you think leaders and the teams should kind of exercise for continuous improvement.
Yeah, so definitely. So I think the first one, my first tip is to understand that you can always improve. So just recognize that no matter how good you are, and no matter what you're doing, there's always room for improvement. The second one is to get help. You'll need a little bit of training. You'll need a little bit of mentoring and coaching, just on adopting this mindset of we can improve and how to improve, like holding retrospectives, for example, and then acting on the results of those retrospectives. The third thing is beware of some of the rhetoric, particularly the rhetoric coming out of the Agile community. Earlier I was talking about failing fast. That's good and bad, but I would really rather see you succeed fast. And you do that with either experienced coaching and or with coaching that's enabled by better tooling, such as Effilix, right? Provide the insights that the coach needs, that the manager needs to provide, that the team needs to identify potential things to experiment with to improve. And then also be prepared to do the work, right? So I think leadership needs to free up people's time. It needs to give them a safe space to do improvement, right? So you can't, like, don't just ask people to improve and then not support them. That's just ridiculous. And I think the fifth would be, you can do this. Other organizations have done this. Other people have done this. You can too. It's a little bit of work, but it's good work to do, and it will work out for you in the long run.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Scott, for sharing your insights on how AI, DevOps, and continuous improvement work together to accelerate software development. This has been a fantastic conversation. We are so glad that we could do this. Perhaps to the listeners, there's going to be another episode with Scott. It's going to be released in the upcoming weeks. And Scott, do you have anything more to add, listeners?
Yeah, I think my final word of advice to people is to read widely. Certainly read about whatever your job role is, so that way you can learn and get better. But also read about the business. Read about the business domain that you're in. I think some of the best advice I was ever given when I was younger was to read widely and read business stuff. Read magazines, read websites that are outside of your domain. You'll have a much better understanding of what's going on in the world, and you'll be able to have better conversations, which will lead to better employment opportunities.
So this is great. So to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Stay tuned for more episodes. We are here to bringing all interesting topics in AI, DevOps, and continuous improvement. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you.
And that wraps up today's episode of the Effilix Podcast on AI in Project Management and Transformation. A big thanks to Scott Ambler for sharing his incredible insights on how AI and DevOps are changing the game in software delivery. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your team. We've got plenty more episodes lined up where we'll dive deeper into how AI is helping teams work smarter, faster, and more efficiently. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.